everyone. Today we're going to be taking a look at page 30 in your lesson book. And we actually are just going to focus on the first two, 116 and 117, because each of these exercises has something new in it that we have not learned before, something that you haven't seen in any music that we've played. And so we're going to take some time to talk about those things and then work on the tunes themselves. So taking a look at number 116, up in that yellow box, you'll see that the word there that's big and bold is called an upbeat. However, in the definition, you'll also see that the other term for it is a pickup. That's the word that I'm going to use. So we're learning about something called a pickup today. Pickup is actually a little bit the term that you'll hear more often. So I'm surprised that they chose upbeat in this book, but pickup is what you'll hear me call it from now until you graduate from high school. So what a pickup is a note that comes before a full measure of music. Okay, so if you take a look at number 116, you can see each of our measures has exactly 4 beats in it. It either has 4 quarter notes or 8 eighth notes or a combination of the two. But you can see the very first looks like a measure. It's not actually a measure. Has just 1 note in it, and it's labeled. They labeled it with that little yellow triangle, and that note is called the pickup. Right? It's just 1 beat, and it comes before a full measure of music. And when you play this, it still gets 1 beat because it's a quarter note. The only difference is when we're counting our measures, like if I said start on measure 2, you do not count that as a measure. You start with the first full measure of music. So for 116, the pickup note is an A, your open A string. The first full measure of music starts on a D, okay? And so when you play this, it'll sound like this. Okay, you'll also notice that for this pickup, it is labeled as an up bow. We're not used to starting on an up bow. We almost always start down bow. But I'll tell you that about 90% of the time that you have a pickup, it will be an up bow. So we're always watching to check to see what bow direction they're asking us to use. The last really important thing about a pickup is that beat has to come out of a measure. And I said that that's not a full measure of music. It's not, it's just 1 beat. But that means it needed to come out of a different measure. And you can see at the very end of 116, they've written, where is beat 4? And you can see there is 1 quarter note, 2 eighth notes, which make 1 beat, and another quarter note. That's only 3 beats. Okay, that last measure only has 3 beats in it. Every other measure has 4. That 4th beat comes from the pickup. So when you play a piece of music that has a pickup, however many beats the pickup was, get taken out of the last measure. And that doesn't really affect how you play it. That's just something to know about music. If you were ever writing your own piece of music and you had a pickup at the beginning, you would need to make sure you took out that number of beats in the last measure. Okay? So let's look through this tune here. So including the pickup, we start with 5 quarter notes, and they're going to sound like this. Okay, so A, D, D, F sharp, A. Try that with me. Make sure you set your bow so it is an up bow. Okay, ready, here we go. Good. The next measure, this is the second full measure. We have some eighth notes with slurs. They're B and A, so it looks like this and sounds like this. They're faster since they're eighth notes. And after those eighth notes, we have an F sharp and a D. So if you put that measure together, it sounds like this. So let's go from the beginning to there. Okay, starting with our up bow. Ready, here we go. Awesome, and if you need to pause and work on that stuff, you can do that. We're now in the 3rd full measure. That first note is an E. We have E, E, G, A. let's practice those notes. So E, E, G, A. And then we have more slurred eighth notes. A, G, F sharp, E, and then quarter notes. So if you put together the third and fourth measure, they sound like this. And that's a little bit tougher in measure 4 with the slurs. The B-A was a little bit on the easier side. This is more of a challenge, but again, if you pause and take some time to go through that slowly, I think most of you should be able to get that for sure. So now we're going to the fifth measure, and this should look very familiar. Measures 5 and 6 sound like this. So almost identical to the first two measures, except instead of going F, D, or F sharp D, we go F sharp A. And then our last two measures, there's a lot going on here. The first thing to note is it's quarter note and then 2 eighth notes, quarter note, 2 eighth notes. So we have that pattern. The eighth notes need to be faster than the quarter notes. So it'll be 1, 2, and 3, 4, and 1, 2, and 3. Now you notice my bow, I was just moving my arm the way I would bow these notes, and it actually is moving at the same interval even for the eighth notes, and that's because you're actually putting 2 eighth notes per bow. So it'll be long note, short, short in the same bow direction. So when you put that together, it sounds like this. See how I get those 2 eighth notes in that one bow direction. If it didn't have slurs, this is what it would sound like. But we really want to try to get those slurs in there too. Okay, let me play all of 116, and then if you have some spots that are tough for you, you can take some time to work through them before our lesson. So here we go. Pick up with an up bow. Ready, here we go. So a really cute tune there. And we're going to move on now to 117. You can see in the yellow box, there are 2 yellow boxes. One says history. You can take a minute to read that if you're interested in that. The other says theory. We're looking at the theory box. And the word here, it actually probably sounds different than what you would expect. Decalfine. That looks like our English word for fine, but this is actually an Italian word, and it's pronounced fine. Okay, I'm going to read the directions or the description in the box, and then I'll explain a little bit more what it means. So it says, play until you see the Decalfine marking, then go back to the beginning and play until you see fine. DC is an abbreviation for da capo, which is the Italian term for returning to the beginning, and fine is the Italian word for finish. Okay, so if we take a look at 117, you would play from the beginning, and you would play. You would actually keep going. I know there's like a double bar at the end of measure 4. You keep going past that. You play all the way to the end, and at the very end, you'll see it says Decalfine. And when I see that, I know that means go back to the beginning and play until I see the word fine, and that is when I would stop. So I would play to the end and go back to the beginning, and then you can see there are 1, 2, 3, 4 measures, and then it says fine. So that's where I would stop. So again, if I was playing, well, when I play this piece of music, because we're going to do it in a minute here, I start at the beginning. I play both lines of music, When I get to the end, I go back to the beginning and I play the first 4 measures and then I stop. And that's how I know I'm done. Fine means the end, where it's over. Okay? So let's take a look at some of these notes, though. This is another really cute melody here, too. So we start the first 2 measures with nice, full, big bows for our half notes. And it's just like a backwards D major scale. So you can set your fingers down for a high D, and it'll sound like this. Try that with me. 1, 2, here we go. Good. Now the next 2 measures will sound like this. D, 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 F, 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 E, D, E, E, D. Okay. Hopefully we're starting to get more comfortable reading these D string notes, so having the faster eighth notes isn't as much of a problem for us as maybe it was in the past. Try that with me. Measures 3 and 4. Ready, and here we go. Good. I slowed it down a little bit so when we go back to the beginning, because we're going to play the first 4 measures, your half notes will be this long. 1, 2, 1, 2. Okay? So for the beginning, the first 4 measures. Ready, and here we go. 1, 2, 1, 2. Down to D. Good. Let's work on this next part 2 measures at a time. On my measures 5 and 6, it'll sound like this. Try that with me. We're starting on D, and have your F sharp ready to put down after the 2 Ds. Ready, and here we go. Good. Measures 7 and 8 is actually a repeat of measures 3 and 4. So we can do this together right now. Dun, 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 ready, and here we go. Nice job. Okay, the next 2 measures sound like this. And I just realized we actually already played those 2. Those are measures 5 and 6. So do it with me. Ready, and here we go. Good. And then you'll see again, it's a repeat here of measures 3 and 4. So the last 2 measures, what is that? 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Measures 11 and 12 are the same as 3 and 4 as well. So let's play that together. Here we go. And then you remember we are not done. We'd have to go back to the beginning and play those first 4 measures again. This is a really great tune to work on if you are trying to practice getting those eighth notes down, because there is a lot of repetition in here. So if you learn like 2 measures and then another chunk of 2 measures, you basically have learned the whole piece. So take some time to look through this because it's a really cute one. It's fun to play, and it will help you with not only the eighth notes, but actually the slurs too, because there's some slurs from the E to the D in measure 4 and the ones that are repeating. So I'm going to play through this whole thing so you can hear what it sounds like with the DCL fine. And if you feel comfortable, you can play along with me. So I'm setting down my high D. Here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4. Back to the beginning. Awesome. So you see, we went right back to the beginning. There wasn't any like extra beat in the middle. It was just a nice smooth transition back to the beginning. All right, so those are your two to work on for this week. We will go over them in our lesson, but spend a little bit of time beforehand working through these so that you can feel comfortable playing them when we get to our lesson. All right, we'll see you next time.